career in web development. So I did a lot of UI and design and front-end development. I started off doing web maintenance, moving on to redesign and UI for I used to live in North Carolina and I worked for the North Carolina State Board of Elections. They needed someone to redesign the site because it was not useful. So they asked me to come in, redesign it, and also rebuild it. That's when I kind of got my first taste of UX, of just understanding why people weren't using the site. They were calling in so much to the elections office and they were always bogged down with phone calls. Since then, I moved on to IQVIA, where I was a lead UI designer and developer. So I worked kind of hand in hand with the product team and business team, and then also with the developers, building the front end for them so that they could build back-end technology onto whatever product we were working on. After that, I moved on to work at Conduent, which was kind of a business services company. IQVIA was pharmaceuticals. Conduent had kind of a set design team where I was one of the senior designers on it. So I was hired to kind of mentor some of our junior designers and then also kind of work hand in hand with the manager, running external vendors, also doing some mobile UI design, helping out to frame out their stories to write for the development team. So I kind of had my hand in a lot of different pots there, which is how I like it. I like to stay busy. After that, I moved to Florida, literally like almost a year and a half ago. I moved here for another opportunity. Didn't really work out. They ran out of funding, so that was fun to get to a new state and can't figure out what to do for my life. But then I ended up at Carnival, luckily, very quickly. They needed help with their ordering process for after you book a cruise. So after you book a cruise, before you even get on the ship, you could actually order like champagne for your room or a teddy bear or a box of chocolates or something for someone else's room. So they wanted someone to come on and kind of do an audit of that part of the site and figure out why people were putting stuff in their shopping cart, but they weren't actually finishing and paying for anything. So that was fun. After that, the pandemic hit and I lost my job. So then I actually had been interviewing with Office Depot in that time and they remembered me and then they pulled me on. So luckily I only had a short hiatus between those two. I worked as the UX manager for the print services team at Office Depot for about 9 months before I started working at Time. So at Office Depot, they needed someone to come in and kind of migrate their very ancient design to something new and modern. We found out that about 70 to 80% of the people who were actually ordering print services on the website were people who were in their 60s and 80s sometime. So we were trying to get the newer generation or younger people to actually, use print services, which actually it's kind of a dying thing. So I'm not sure if that's going to change anytime soon. And then that brought me to Time. So while I was at Office Depot, I was grateful to have a job in the pandemic, but also I'm one of those people who searches for a job that not only like keeps me, I guess, not entertained, but more so like, I feel like I'm not dying in my job. I want to feel like, it's meaningful, that I'm making an impact somewhere, that I'm learning. Because when you stop learning, that's when things kind of go south. And I always feel somewhere between that 3-month to 6-month period, you always know in your career whether or not this is your thing. So during that time, I was kind of trying to figure out, did I want to stick with UX or did I want to go into project management? And while I was doing all that thinking, I saw a job posting for Time and I was like, well, why not? Just apply. And they called me back and interviewed and here I am. I've been here since January working here. And my job now is kind of both of those things. So I actually did get the best of both worlds. I am doing UX design and then also some project management because Time kind of broke off from a bigger parent company. So now we're kind of like a startup in a sense. So we're literally starting from the ground up of like, how should this be, the best team we can make it? How do we convert our products from just magazine readers to an online presence? And now we're trying to bring in an actual mobile app too, because now most people are reading the news on their phones. So kind of trying to adapt to that changing time. But that's basically what has brought me to where I am today. And now I get to meet all you wonderful people.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I normally one of the first questions I ask is, how did your previous experience prepare you for this role? But I'm seeing a very clear trend of you kind of coming on to these legacy systems and helping them update or address some problems that they've had for a while. So
Mhm.
I guess my question would be, do you see that as kind of like a path that you've, I guess a pattern that you've uh, had in your past jobs?
I would definitely say it, yes, is a pattern. I actually noticed that last year. I feel like of the jobs that I've had as a designer, they're easier to get
Hmm.
because it's mostly, if you look at it at a simple sense, it is maintenance. All you're doing is like updating a template or
Hmm.
making sure this font matches this font on this page. So a lot of it is that kind of work, but they need someone to do that, need someone to have that design sense, need someone to kind of think beyond just, does this function correctly? As far as the other kind of ones where they're like, we don't have a product at all, or, we want to completely get rid of our old system and bring up a new one. I've liked those better because they are hiring someone with fresh eyes to come in and give them a different perspective on like what they could be doing, not necessarily on like, what can we do to improve our current system? We want to keep it because people are using it and we're making money, but we also think it should be more modern and it should be more up to date. So seeing that difference, I've started looking more for the, what kind of project can I join onto that wants to change, not just tweak a color here and there. So I have made that transition. I think the pattern before of me choosing positions that were those maintenance jobs, it was more so because I had the development background. Most of those positions who are looking for someone to kind of update templates and, make consistencies in the style guide and things like that, they also want you to have kind of a background in HTML and CSS, things like that.
Awesome.
There's a question there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll just read it. Do you find the decision makers are open to change? That's a great question.
So for me, um, I've noticed there's a way of going about it. So in the past, I would say no, because most, especially bigger companies like corporations, those companies, the job is, it's stable, you're there. And, but most of the time, design takes a backseat in the decision making process. And it's because they're an older company, their product is, stabilized, it's not going anywhere. So technically they just need forms to be submitted. But with newer companies that like say they just had a management change or somewhere up top, they finally got rid of the old wigs. They want to actually see change. So I actually am seeing that transition in companies now where they want to take that kind of approach. Like, what can we do from a usability standpoint to change our product? Like maybe it can benefit in some way from having an outside look from, from design to just usefulness to accessibility. They're actually thinking about these things instead of it being like, oh, this is something we can fix later on. So I am actually starting to see that change now, especially during the pandemic, because now it all is based on how people are using your system, not just, can they complete it, but how they're completing it. Are they even getting to that point? So yeah, I am seeing that decision makers, they're finally listening and seeing that design is important. Whereas like in the past, when I first started out in my career, no, it was kind of like, she just does the pretty pictures. So, which would drive me nuts. But I'm happy to see it's finally changing. People are seeing how important it is now.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that trend. It seems like designers are getting a lot more credit, and it's great. It,
Yeah.
it's what we need. Um, so when you joined on time, was there a designer there or a team that kind of handed something off to you, or was this a case where it was almost like, are you in a kind of from scratch sort of situation right now?
So right now we have a lot of legacy stuff, a lot of existing templates and things, way more than I thought there were. There is another designer on the team, but she literally was working on everything that had to do with time.com. And she was overwhelmed. So that's why they pulled me on, which is great. Now there's help, but I think now we're starting to bring in new initiatives of kind of like, what does that transition look like from someone who gets a magazine in the mail to someone who's reading, our daily brief in their emails, to making it over to our website. And now, like this morning, I'm 3 months into this job and I'm still learning quite a bit every single day. I'm just learning that like our daily brief for time.com has a voiceover feature. So you can actually listen to the top stories of the day. I didn't even know this. And we found that that is actually a problem because it's hidden. So most of people today, especially with our routines, you get up in the morning, you want to take a shower and listen to a podcast or listen to the latest news. We're missing one of those little notes of just engagement, of just allowing people to listen to our stories. And I work here, and like I think two other people on our call were the same way. We're like, we have voiceovers, and these are people who've been there like 5 or 6 years. So yeah, I've noticed it's been some strange things there. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, just one more. This is kind of a personal question because I haven't gotten a chance to speak to too many people who are kind of at these big, time is, it's a relatively giant, structure. So
Mhm.
in a situation like that, where there's a feature that's kind of buried or a change you want to make, what's sort of the process you go through to kind of make sure that happens?
So actually here is one of the first companies I've worked for where they're actually putting more weight into figuring out what all these issues are. Like for the last 2 weeks, we've had these calls where we're putting together a list of features that would increase engagement on the site. So just a handful of like, we pulled together a tiny committee. We came up with like 20 items to just come up with. So the first people to take a stab at it were myself and the other designer. And then we had other people from the business team and then some of our project managers just give a little 2 cents. And then also we asked the development team. So these are people who literally work on the site every day, look at it, see all the features that we have, probably know way more than any of the rest of us on the team. And we're just seeing you as a person. I know you work here. You also read your own company's magazine. What features would you like to see on the site? Or what is something that only you know about, but you think that no other person knows about? So the fact that we're kind of getting a kind of like a bird's eye view of the website, but also like, here's all the features, and now we're telling everybody about it. And now we're trying to get everyone's feedback about it. And then we're also trying to commit to the things we're going to tackle. So actually getting to see what that list is before it becomes like, hey, we came up with these 6 things about 3 months ago in a meeting with like the board, and we want you to work on this. I get to kind of be at the top level of like, this is where the list started. We are literally typing it out right now. So that's actually been a fun change to see, of just having everyone kind of really involved in that.
Great. And okay, yeah, so we got another question, and this is interesting. Is the readership demographic aging or are they young? This is really interesting.
So that's one thing we are trying to actually figure out right now. For time.com itself, we're seeing the kind of an older demographic, much older than, I guess, millennials right now. I mean, we're still part of that demographic, but it's also people who, I guess, value a physical magazine. So someone who's probably in their 50s or older is probably more of what we're seeing. For the app itself, I'm noticing like we have an outside agency who's trying to tackle this for us, but we're also working with them to get this designed. Is they're trying to take the approach of how do we get younger people to join the site and read more news and be involved in the community. And there's too much focus on that. um, I feel like if we put way too much focus on that, we're going to lose the current users we have, especially the older demographic who probably doesn't want to be on an app just to read their news, or gets annoyed by notifications that pop in on their phone when they probably already have 60,000 from their grandparents and coworkers. So just trying to kind of keep an eye on, yes, we want to make it cool enough for people who are in the younger age groups, but also we need to make sure we're keeping it consistent to where we're not completely giving something to them that they don't understand. So what we've noticed lately is that there hasn't really been any real user testing done on the site either in quite a while. Like me even asking questions of, I know the magazine articles are super long to read through. They are, it's storytelling. It's just the format of how things are written at time. But some of those get translated over onto the web as well. They're super long. Like me as a millennial, Reading through them, I probably get about halfway through and I feel like I have enough information and I leave. And I almost wonder what's everyone else's experience. And we don't even have that data yet. So now we're finally having discussions on, well, which user testing company are we going to get so we can start running simple tests like this? How long does it take for somebody to read an article? Are they scanning through? Are they just like reading a headline and leaving? Are they sharing anything? This is data that we're missing. So it's kind of like we're assuming we know who our readers are, but we really don't. We don't have the data to back it up either, especially on the web.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty, I mean, that's shocking in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So you said something that was pretty interesting, and maybe this could be, an open sort of question if anyone else wants to chime in on with their opinions. But in that situation where you have an older reader base and at the same time you're trying to go more digital, and obviously like the future is going more digital,
Mm-hmm.
how do you think, like, in your opinion, what's the best way to handle that? Because that seems like a very, you can only put your resources in one place at a time. So, you don't want to, try to juggle too many things. So I'm wondering, yeah, how would you go about sort of balancing that?
So what we're deciding is that, of course, there's going to have to be another team for mobile. But then also as far as like stories that we'll be posting on the app itself, they may be different from the web. So we're kind of seeing that's going to be the difference. So our traditional readers and users will probably stay on the website. We are also trying to make it more mobile friendly. So we're doing these at the same time. Even though we have time.com, we're also going to have a Time app. So they'll get a similar experience, but it won't, I guess, have all the bells and whistles that the app does, just to make it, more cool to look at. But I think also just adding in features of like personalization. So whereas this came up during our discovery phase of like the sprint, was, well, which apps are we comparing ourselves to? And it came up a lot, like the New York Times, another was The Atlantic, other ones like that who already have apps that are doing well. I've even asked friends like, who do you go to read about the news? Not necessarily like daily news going on in your neighborhood, but at least global, international news as well. And New York Times, of course, is at the top of the list. But then also kind of like the experience of how would you like to go through news? And it came up, which was funny, was TikTok. Um, of just being able to scroll through stories. But that experience already exists too on like Google News. Before I owned an iPhone, previous this year, I had an Android and it was the Pixel. So everything on the Pixel is Google based. And of course I got shoved to Google News. And they kind of do the same way where it's like a list, a brief of the day of like, here's your top 20 stories. But we were kind of trying to think of a way to do it in like, instead of just having the top 20 stories, can we add in like video or maybe like a podcast or like our Time 100 talks? Can we add that into like a feed? So giving kind of mixed versions of media to show all at once instead of just article after article, which is what New York Times is kind of doing. But then also their articles also mix in like half of the article is a video about the article, and then the other half kind of makes you read and then you watch another video. So it's kind of like a little journey to get through it. But I'm sure that that was part of their process too, of planning of like, how do we keep people in this article and how do we make sure they make it to the end?
Wow. Yeah, that's I actually noticed, I never really realized that Time has like a YouTube channel and they have a lot of content, but I just didn't really know to look for it.
I think they're actually going to stop doing that too.
Oh.
We were talking about that today, Alice.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that actually, I have a bunch of broader questions that stem from that, but Stephanie just asked a pretty good question. How do you go about interviewing users to get that data? And could you walk us through that approach? Like if there are steps or, yeah.
So what I have noticed in most companies, so like when I was at Carnival, we had something called like mouse flow, where you could watch user sessions of someone literally going through your website. You can't hear what they're doing. You're not giving them any steps, but you are watching them. So that's how we got most of our data of like, people are ordering this bag of chips and they're not making it to the credit card screen. Let's see these other 10 people and see what they're doing. So that was kind of useful when you need something on the fly. And it's also like, you can kind of measure it and say these 20 people did these same steps as, user one, and they came up with this issue, we've got a bug. So that was a quick way of going about it. Another was at Office Depot, we used usertesting.com to actually run unmoderated tests. When I was at IQVIA, a pharmaceutical company, we had a bigger pool to some of the clinical trial participants. But then also we had a bigger pool to all the people who ran it as well. So these are nurses and doctors and medical professionals. So with those moderated tests, I actually had more fun with those than the unmoderated. The unmoderated tests, you're literally just writing a script, like, here's a website that we want you to try. Imagine you're doing ABC, here are the steps you need to do it, walk us through, talk the entire time. It's a simple script, and you're most likely going to get the same outcome, especially if you already have an existing problem that you're testing. Like, do you think that this button should be over here or over here? And then you get a simple output of like 7 out of 10 people chose the one on the right side. The unmoderated test is similar. You are writing a script, but it's more interactive. So this is a live person who's on the screen with you. I typically would like set up an intro email that's like introducing whatever project or feature I'm working on, kind of saying, we're working on a new form to do blah, blah, blah. We were wondering if you would be interested in participating in our study. This test will only take you 20 or 30 minutes to complete. It is a live session, if you don't mind being recorded. So kind of giving them like background of what to expect. Then within that, once they accept and say, yes, I'll join you. For what I did for them, I made sure like our whole team was involved. Typically, what most people do is kind of have their little moderated session, and then they give out the results at the end to the team, and it's like this huge doc. Whereas what I would do is have these moderated sessions be live. So I am doing it live with the user who has signed up for this, but also kind of on the line is the development team, the product team, some of our business representatives as well. They're on there just watching and listening. I would say, don't say anything. But it's just, me and this person, I'm interviewing them. So what do you think of our site? Can you tell me what you're seeing on this page right now? Can you walk me through how you would buy this bar of soap? So it's a simple format similar to the unmoderated tests. You have a script. I typically kind of have a script off to the side with little screenshots so I can stay in order. I kind of print it out, give it out to my team. So it's a little bit more tedious, but that's just because I like to, take notes on the fly. With unmoderated, I find them more tiring because like with usertesting.com, we're actually trying to find a company now to actually do our user testing. You can sign up, I guess, 10 or more participants for one test. So that's 10 people running your test that you need. You've given them all the same script. Typically, I would do an A/B test, or either sometimes we did an ABC because we would have 3 different designs. So you're running them through in order, but then also usertesting.com hasn't worked through all the kinks. So sometimes they would get ABC, some participants would get BCA. It was a mess. But typically using them, because they've been the fastest, you could run this test with your 10 participants and literally get all those results back the same day. So then that means you've got 10, 20 to 30 minute sessions to listen to. Whereas with a moderated session, you would probably do maybe like 5 or 6 people. And since it's live, you can ask them more questions as well. If they give you feedback of like, no, I don't think that's the way I would do it, but I'll go ahead and do it this way. You can ask the person then, well, instead of doing it that way, well, why don't you show me how you would? You have more opportunities to actually ask those extra questions. So I actually find the unmoderated ones are better, but they are more time consuming. Whereas I guess maybe it's the same because you have to listen to that many. I just remember so many nightmare days of having to go through like 10 to 12 participant videos and listening to them. Like that was my whole day. I can't do any meetings right now listening to this 30-minute session. And I'm only two people in. So yeah, hopefully that was
it's I definitely know what you mean because when you're talking to the person, it's just way more engaging versus like the separation. I'm kind of curious. have you ever worked for a company that's had to source their own users for user testing? Because I've, you know, experienced certain situations where we're trying to test current users of the app, and you know, it's harder to use like an outside service for that. And I'm just wondering, yeah, if you've ever had to find users on your own.
So there's a cheap way to go about it, which is what we did at Conduent. Um, we didn't have the funding to use something as fancy as usertesting.com. Like the quotes we got are super expensive. I don't understand how they're so expensive. But anyway, so what we typically did was like, if your company is big enough, that means you have multiple departments. You could actually go to another team within your company and say, hey, would you mind participating in this? As kind of like a set of new eyes. Typically it worked. Most people have no idea what your team is working on anyway until they see it live, and they still probably don't know the ins and outs of it. So that was a cheap way for us to go about it. Or even like to ask another designer on your team who's working on separate projects of like, can you test this real quick and just see if it works for you? So I mean, that was one simple way of us going about it. Another way, which I don't know how this would, I guess this could work. So at Carnival and at Office Depot, we did do some on foot. So sometimes, like at Office Depot, we would actually go into a store and have our survey and actually go up to a person and ask them a pool of questions. Or they would ask, you know, one of their employees, could they run through this new system because we're updating their systems. At Carnival, that was a little fun. I didn't stay there long enough to be able to do this, so I am a little bitter about it. But what we would do is for a new designer feature that would be added to the site, we would pull together a prototype and actually take it on a ship. So we would take an actual cruise and actually go to people, you know, set up a table, bring our laptops, and actually ask some of the customers who were on the cruise ship and just say, you know, would you be interested in like doing a quick study real quick? It'll take you like 10 minutes just to go through this. So actually going up and doing that. So I don't know if you have, I guess, the resources or opportunity to do something like that. I mean, it's fun. It actually gets you to speak to a live person. You can see their face, which is better. You can see the
Yeah,
confusion if you need to. But that's typically the two avenues we've taken, which is kind of cheaper. Yeah.
great. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, and if there's any more questions, I see one, and this is a good general question. What does UX mean to you?
So to me, because forever, especially when I first started my career, I only focused on the back end and coding. It was like, I need to build something to make it work. And I got to a point in my career where I was like, I don't understand what I'm building or who I'm building it for or why I'm building it. And is it the right thing for them? And I've seen this somewhere else. And why aren't we thinking about that? So it's like I had this little epiphany of questions that came out of nowhere. And I was like, I want to know more. I want to like speak to other people on our team. I want to see like what other users are doing. To me, it's like you get to a point in your career where like UX becomes everything, not just like your job, it becomes part of your life too. Where I was talking to like one of my friends earlier and I was like, you know, I chose grocery shopping apps based on the user experience that that they gave me. I was like, do I want grocery delivery from Publix? Do I want it from Walmart? Do I want it from Amazon? Do I want it from Instacart? And just going through there and being like, you know, I like the Publix one because they send me a text message and ask me, do I want lemon chicken or just the plain rotisserie chicken from the grocery store? So just that small kind of, you know, little tidbit of human or humanity in the application, it made all the difference for me. So I feel like I've taken, you know, more of an approach of like, how am I applying this to the rest of my life? I'm not just doing, you know, the 9 to 5 of like, I'm only doing UX in this window. I'm thinking of it outside of that because I feel like that has framed a lot of the work that I've worked on because now I like with projects I have at time now, I'm kind of like, I know this has nothing to do with a publishing company, but like I was on the Peloton app the other night and I found this feature that'll work. So it's nice just being able to think about things that way, and then also wanting to be the type of person who actually, you know, wants to have those questions or wants to dig a little deeper or is excited about research and data of like 20,000 people left comments here and like 40% of them left, you know, like 4 stars instead of 5 stars. Let's go see. So you have to be a little nerdy in that sense, and to be able to appreciate that part of yourself to be in UX. And I feel like that's the part that I was missing in my career of like my work needed purpose and it needed to feel meaningful. And I think that was, the last piece of the puzzle for me was to work on that part of just, it feels like it's more than just a job. It feels like, I'm incorporating my life experiences into my work experiences, and then also applying that to see if what has made me happy or has made me comfortable in an app or has worked for me might help someone else. So I like thinking about things in that way. How can I help other people? So that's what UX means to me.
That's awesome. We really appreciate that explanation because yeah, that rings true. I think a lot of us are always kind of on the lookout for like what is a good experience, even if
Right.
it's wherever it happens, and then you kind of take that with you to wherever whatever you're working on. That is great. Yeah, I mean, I guess then so this could be a general question, and then after Ashley answers, anyone else can answer. What are some user experiences you've had recently, or a product you've used that kind of like opened your eyes to, some kind of new possibility, a new level of connection, or sort of a way to inject humanity into an experience?
Mhm.
Anything that you're really into or championing right now?
Um, so right now, I don't know if it's open to the general public or not. Um, my insurance agency actually like allowed this new program to some of its members where it's like a health program. And half of me signed up because I am a UX designer. I was curious. It is a program that kind of tracks it tracks your weight. It also puts you in direct contact with a health coach. Like you can actually talk to your health coach every single day and they will actually answer, which blew my mind. I was like, isn't she busy? We've got like 50 people in this program. But then also it puts kind of like a community feature in as well. So it's not just you and your health coach she's holding you accountable, or he. It's you have a community of other people who are similar to you. So they've done some type of research where they got a similar amount of people who have similar goals, similar issues or accountability measures that they're trying to reach. And they've put them all in the same group. We actually found out everyone who's in our group is actually in Florida as well. So that was actually nice to see. But then also, like we can message each other directly, or we can send out like a good morning, everybody. What are you eating for breakfast? Like those simple things there kind of keep you on track of like, I told 50 people that I'm having avocado toast for the 7th time this week. So just that, that little feature is, it's more than just avocado toast. It's like 20 of these 30 people had avocado toast as well. They understand the same pain that I'm going through right now. We're going to hate and enjoy this all at the same time. So, but that's been a good experience. Another one that I actually got introduced to was Clubhouse. Our company kind of brought that up as another example of something we could look to for when we're designing our app. Of it's a community feature. We do want to bring in some level of community to time.com more so than just people reading our articles. We want them to have discussions, but also kind of seeing, are these moderated? What if, most of the comments are negative or things like that? How are they handling that? Looking into kind of the Twitter approach and how Facebook is handling how people are commenting on things. But with Clubhouse, it kind of gives an opportunity, like say during a Time 100 talk, to allow people to have a comment verbally, or to allow them to kind of comment on whatever subject we're talking about at the time live, and actually get a comment back or have one of their questions surfaced in the Time 100 talk. That would be really cool, because sometimes we actually talk to celebrities. So say Obama's in there and all of a sudden you can ask Obama, what's your favorite ice cream? So hopefully you would be asking him deeper questions than that, but I mean, I would ask him that, but anyway. But that was another cool app that I was introduced to this year. Um, Trying to think of another one that I've used. I can't think of it right now, but I'm pretty sure I have like 3,000 apps on my phone right now. But
Yeah.
I'm interested in hearing what you guys think too.
Yeah, you can either throw it in the chat or just shout it out.
I'm addicted to Redecor,
Hmm.
which is like a interior design app. And I mean, it's got some, I would improve upon it personally. But I find like as a creative kind of cleanse, like it's a good to just go into something that's already got frameworks, like the wall and the couch and the this and the that, and then you change colors and you know, patterns and light and everything. And then I'm like, okay, good. Okay. And then I can get back to work. So as a like a palette cleanser, I really like that because it's creative, but it's also structured and it only takes 90 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like the idea of a creative palette cleanser. Like,
yeah,
if you're staring at like wireframes or something, and you just want to like, you still want to be active, but you need a break. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one similar to that. It's a sleep app, actually. I feel like it's like a coloring book for adults almost. Luna, I don't know if anyone's actually ever heard of that. It's kind of telling you about like someone, how they grew up and their life experiences. They're in college, now they're an adult, things like that. But every night you get kind of like a little nugget of their life. And as the story is being told, it's actually having you color elements or bring them to life.
Wow.
It's 3D. You can actually move the room around. Some of the things you actually have to tap into, and it'll be like a little note to you. I actually have noticed recently, which I thought was a great change, some of the people who are reading the stories now, they're female. Whereas before it was just like these old men, you could tell they're old men, reading the stories. So someone, I guess they listen to comments and, you know, wherever the form is that they leave their comments, and was like, can you add some female readers in here? Maybe people want to hear that. What I would like to see probably in their next release, I'm going to go leave a comment, because now I feel like that's all I do with my time is like, can we choose who's going to read the story? You know, can it be an older person? Can, you know, it be a child who reads it? Can, you know, it be a man or a woman, you know, have some more opportunities to hear from a different perspective. So I like to see it's actually growing. I think this app was actually released not too long ago. So to see the amount of updates that they're making now, they're actually listening to their users. So good win for them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I also feel that same sort of like pull to comment or like leave feedback for apps that I really like now, because now I'm realizing like, oh, that actually matters, and it actually could, you know, whereas like 5 years ago, I might not have done that, you know, so that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. I was the same way. I would leave stars everywhere. And now I'm kind of like, well, actually, when I went to this page, I've become that person. I'm going to leave meaningful feedback. They're going to listen to me.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else want to share any sort of apps or experiences that they're loving right now?
You're welcome.
And so, yeah, Amanda has a question. I guess, yeah, this is kind of just a general one. Just any advice that you would give to someone entering the field out of college?
So I would say, don't be picky with your industry. I know if you actually go like to my LinkedIn or see my resume, you'll see like I didn't pick like just healthcare or just government agencies. And I hear that a lot from, especially when I was interviewing this year and some of last year, of kind of like, how did you choose the industries, you know, that you've picked here? You worked at a lot of places. And I'm like, is that weird? But for me, I feel like if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have had the experiences I've had now. I come into like an e-commerce company with information that I learned from an IT company. And I'm now coming into a publishing company with some information that I pulled from a paper and printing company. So it's all kind of relative. Whereas people are like, you know, if I go from this place to this place and stay within the same industry, I'll have an advantage. You do, but then also, you know, like, are you picking it because you want to stay in healthcare, or are you picking it because you think it's easier to stay there and move linearly? So for me, I like giving myself the opportunity of choosing different types of industries, especially if I'm going to jump around. And then also, like, early in my career, I always used to give myself a time frame of a year of, is this opportunity working out for me? If you at any time feel like, I'm just gonna stick it out because it's good pay and like it's stable and it's job security, but also look within and kind of think like, is it really working for me? Am I bored to tears? Like, is this something I can see myself doing for the next 5 or 6 or 10 years in this same company? Am I going to be one of those people who are like, I've been here since I was 20 and I'm like 50 now? If it is that opportunity for you and it's been exciting all those years, that's great. But I learned early on that like I'm young and you have the opportunity to jump around. And if you want to move on to a new opportunity because you feel like you're not growing or you feel like you're not learning anything, you feel like you're not moving up on the team, you're going to stay a junior forever. I have moved on to different opportunities because I feel like I am moving my own growth. So every time I would move on to another position, it would be because I've learned as much as I need to learn from this position. I need to find something else in order to keep moving for myself. So definitely do that. If you feel the feeling of like you're feeling stagnant, that's when you need to kind of keep your feelers out there. That was like one of the first important things I actually like remembered and listened to from my college professor of kind of like, don't get stuck. Don't ever stop learning. And then also don't ever stop looking for jobs. Even if you found like the, crystal ball of jobs there, just keep looking. You never know when another opportunity, might be better than that one. But also don't jump, the first week you're there because you never know what's going to happen. It may change. Give yourself at least 3 to 6 months at least before making another change. Yeah. A little long-winded, but that's the advice I would give.
That's great advice. Yeah, I love that. Just don't be picky, and your resume is just so, I think it's so impressive for that. Like you've been at all these different companies, and they're like, these are big companies, so it's like, you're gonna pick up something from the carnival industry, the cruise industry that someone might not have who's worked in publishing their whole life. And I think that I've read somewhere that that's really how most innovation happens, is people taking insights from one field and applying it in another.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like right before I left Office Depot, quite a few people from Amazon actually started getting hired at Office Depot, which is a weird kind of thing to see of like people are moving away from Amazon to over here. So, but I mean, it's nice. It's someone who is working at a company that's doing well, coming to another company that's doing well in a completely different industry. Maybe some things will work here that, didn't work over there. So I always feel like it's a good benefit. I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I will soon. So that's the way I look at it all the time.
That's awesome. That is an awesome perspective to have. Yeah, so Ashley, this is so great. I mean, when we first talked, I was like, okay, you got to come on and do one of these, because you were just so full of knowledge and so generous to share it. Yeah, so I think, yeah, is there any more questions? We can kind of wrap up with some more broad ones about like the future, kind of like trends and where you think, where do you think that new designers should kind of have their antennas pointed? Where do you think this sort of giant broad category of UX is headed?
Yeah. So are there any questions before I dive into that?
Thank you for all the questions too. They were all really, really good.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I guess I'll jump into that one. What I'm seeing is, and it's kind of sad, is that I think desktop design is going to die off at some point. Like I see that a lot of kind of like, it's a default of just everyone has a website, but then like even at time right now, when I present my designs to one of our departments, to like our studio team, we had a previous redesign or new design for a new product that's going out. I presented my mobile stuff first, and then desktop is kind of like, oh, it'll just be, full width. Every time I present something that is desktop, that's kind of just the thing of it'll be full width. Let's see the mobile stuff now. So I think more products will be more mobile focused. Tablet. I haven't seen much focus on that. Like it came up one time that I've noticed in like the past 3 years, and that actually has been here at time.com. Of, well, what about, that breakpoint? Do we worry about that? And I guess the general answer is like, it'll go down to 2 columns, or it'll just be a narrower 1 column layout. I don't know. I see them starting to treat tablet as desktop now. That's what I'm starting to see.
Wow.
So it's like mobile has become everything for everyone. And which is weird because I feel like our older demographic still uses computers. Like my mother, she's just like, I don't want to look at my email on my phone. The screen's too small. The writing's too small. Can you show me how to open it up? So yeah, I'm seeing that more these days.
That's really interesting. I think it's also interesting because I would expect Time would kind of be very it seems tablet friendly for a Time product to work there. But I guess, yeah, it's kind of mobile. I guess that's what everyone looks at most. So
I think for the magazine feature of it, they're saying that there's a bigger weight on tablet because it's just easier to read those articles because they are so dense. But for mobile, even when we start figuring out what that's going to look like, it's taking a dense article that was once on desktop and now on tablet, and then on mobile that you're scrolling so much your thumb hurts. What is that now going to look like on an app where people are so used to quick hits, or, I want to read this in 5 minutes or less. And we have no idea how long it actually takes someone to read an article now. So I'm starting to kind of see that change the mindset of people of just how do we actually consume this information on our site? We are throwing it at our users and just assuming, they're going to read it all. But I feel like it's a wasted effort, especially by like our editing team, of writing this beautiful piece and people only take little small pieces out of it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's funny, like thinking about challenging assumptions. It's like, that's something that hasn't really been considered. Like, are people reading our whole articles? And now you're going to just start diving into that. And it'll be interesting to see what results you get and if that affects, design or any features that you implement. It's really interesting. Yeah. Great. Any other questions? I'm pretty sure Ashley has an answer for everything, so you can just ask any question.
Most of the questions that have come up, I feel like we just talked about this stuff today. Even like this podcast here, that actually came up today too. Of like they want to do the voiceovers for like our videos, but then also it's come up because the New York Times has done it as well. Like they incorporated podcasts in some of their storytelling. Like we have a book club channel in our Slack. And one of the things we went over was the podcast and story about like nice white parents.
So good.
I was able to like listen to that while I was doing my work. And I was like, this will be great because it is a longer format. It is something that, has depth to it. And also there's like different nuggets that I'm listening to. You're listening to different perspectives and you're giving yourself time to actually listen to all those pieces of the story. I feel like Time is missing out on that a little bit of just allowing someone to just read our articles. Let me listen to them, while I'm working or while I'm, driving to the store or whatever. So actually hearing this morning, oh yeah, we do that already for like 6 of our stories. We didn't even know that. So that means, users who are on our site don't know that either. So they're still just reading through. So podcasts, we did bring that up as like another form of engagement of maybe we do more than just our top stories. Like, can we add in that feature, especially for accessibility? Because I think we recently had an accessibility test or thing run on our site and it didn't do so well. So I'm now taking up that effort of trying to figure out how to fix that for our site as well. And, podcasts would be great, or even voiceovers for our articles, just having that simple feature for people, who may be vision impaired or, can't use the computer the way we do. Just adding something as simple as let someone read the story to me could be, a great asset to us. So that would actually be a great feature. I would love to have like Time podcast stories.
It's such great journalism too, right? Like we talk about, it's not like it's a diversion. It's not like dumbing it down. It's like you were saying, Nice White Parents is so good.
Yeah.
And like, as a person who's on my screen all the time, I use podcasts to, like, I'm cleaning my house, I'm going for a walk, like I use it to engage with the product or the brand or the
Exactly.
information, or like that which I'm curious about, but I get a break from screen. Like,
Yes.
so I just think it gives so much diversity.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much. I want to say it's surprising that Time and Carnival are just thinking about these things right now.
Mhm.
And as a recent graduate, I kind of feel like so behind, like I've got so much catching up to do, that it really encourages me that my knowledge base or what I have to offer is valuable, and I'm in it at the right time. And so thank you, because there are so many large corporations or large products that I would think, they've already got it all figured out. It's nice to know there's a marketplace for
Yeah. It's
designers.
funny about that too, where it is an issue, but most of these larger corporations just handle a lawsuit. So they'll just
Oh,
like pay money. They'll get sued and they're like, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. And then they're like, we'll take this into consideration and fix it within the next year or two. So it's like, it's because they're older. They have the money to just like cover up that and then just say like, we're sorry, we'll fix it. So like you said, you're a recent grad, it's perfect. You can come on and be learning at the same time that you're trying to fix the issue. So like with me, most of the usability experience that I've gotten, especially with user testing, I haven't done much of it. Probably in like the beginning of my year, I didn't even touch any of that. It was somewhere towards the end where someone was like, what would happen if we like ran an audit on our site from our team? Like no one else sees it. And then it was kind of like, oh, this is amazing. Let's do another and another. It's just like, it takes one thing to kind of get the ball rolling. But most of these companies, they're not going to do anything about it unless someone says something about it. So, and that's mostly the problem with most of these bigger corporations. Things will stay stuck and old until, someone comes in and tries to sue them a couple of times, probably. So.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. The slow moving giants, but yeah, it's definitely encouraging to know that they're still making these changes, and they're going to need more minds and people to help do that.
I think most of these companies are becoming more open to it now, as compared to before, where they were kind of like, well, it's okay, our product's working. But now they're kind of looking at it aesthetically, and then also like, well, what is this other company doing that we're not doing? Like we have the same exact product. Why aren't we doing as well as them? We've been around 20 more years than they have. So they're now trying to think of like, well, what can we do to be innovative? So it's great to kind of see that change. Whereas before it's kind of like, we'll take care of it later, or we're just going to keep what we have. Just make sure we keep it running.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess one last thing would be if everyone, if anyone wants to just put their Twitter or email in the chat. I think it's always great to kind of like just connect. I think newer designers, it's good to build a network, and we can all kind of like, follow each other, learn from each other. Yeah, this was so great, Ashley. Honestly, like I'm excited to rewatch this one because there were just like so many gems. This is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. It's been actually great to speak to other people who are in the field. I'm so happy to see more people are joining UX. When I was in college, everyone wanted to be a graphic designer. I'm so happy to see that's changing. Thank God. You're not going to get anywhere as a graphic designer. You'll be miserable. So don't do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Man, I could talk to you for another hour. But I don't want to keep anyone past the time. Yeah. The graphic designer thing is like, it's, I think a UX designer is kind of like a graphic designer that actually gets paid.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what it is in my mind.
Basically, we actually just do everything. You do graphic design, web design, business requirements, all that. It's just better to have all the hats, honestly.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Ashley. Ashley, oh, do you want to put your, is there anything you would like people to reach you at, or?
Yeah,
No?
you guys can actually, let me give my LinkedIn link real quick for you guys. So if you ever want to reach out to me, you can.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for coming, everyone. And I'll probably send out just a recap, and it'll have, it'll have this video and this audio, and anything that you missed, you could watch, you could share with your friends. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. This has been great. Seriously. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.